Hello friends, KangasCloud here, and if you're a Pokemon fan or a fan of gaming in general, you've probably noticed something going on in the world of Nintendo lately. That's right, this year we're getting a brand new Pokemon game. And no, I'm not talking about Detective Pikachu, although I still think it would have been awesome had that petition to have Danny DeVito do the voice for Pikachu worked out.
I am not a human being! I am an animal! Cold-blooded!
I am referring to, of course, this winter's release of Pokemon Sun and Moon. To highlight the significance of this, let's hop into the time machine and run through just a little bit of history. Ever since Nintendo and the developers at Game Freak first created Pokemon Red and Blue back in 1998, and I know what you're gonna say, but Kanga, the Japanese versions of the games were released 2 years earlier in 1996, and Pokemon Blue was originally Pokemon Green. And thank you, my insightful audience, but clearly I am not Japanese. So for the sake of expediency, we're going to stick with the North American timeline for now, although Venusaur getting pushed out of the limelight in favor of Blastoise is definitely something worth discussing someday in another video. But anyway, since those original games were released, every 3 to 4 years, a new generation of Pokemon flies on and off the store shelves and into our greedy, eager hearts. Most of the time, these titles are simple, but effective gaming masterpieces, making Pokemon one of the best series in the Nintendo arsenal, and the upcoming Generation 7, so far, looks to be no different. But not all of the games are perfect creations, and just like everything else in life, there are flaws to be found, which leads me to ask the question, what if Pokemon Sun and Moon isn't good? And forget just not being good, what if the new Pokemon game is bad? Don't get me wrong, I'm just as excited for this new release as the next Pokemaniac, but I've been disappointed too many times to think of anything as a 100% guarantee. So what if Pokemon Sun and Moon are bad? What would make them bad games? Well, first off, I'm gonna rule out discussion of new Pokemon that happen to be ugly, because let's face it, every generation has ugly Pokemon. But really, what could happen in these games that would make us cry as we think of that inevitable $40 we're gonna pull out of our wallets to buy what we, as Pokemon fans, think of as the greatest new game of the 21st century? Well, I can think of a couple things, and here's a little list. Bad Mega Evolutions. And before you say, but Kanga, all the Mega Evolutions are great! They improve the original Pokemon! Just remember one thing. Audino. Mega Audino happened. Nobody wanted it, yet we all had to see it. So what if all of the new Mega Evolutions are ones that no one wants? Can anyone say Mega Carnivine?
I'm just a mean green mother from outer space, and I'm bad. Outer space.
Actually, that might not be too bad. Looks old. So, there's one big thing that's already happened this year for Pokemon fans, and that's the release of Pokken for the Wii U. And while Pokken is an incredible game, far exceeding most expectations, it's done one thing that could hurt a potential 7th generation title. It's put the bar for visual aesthetics really high. Just look at these animations. If the graphics of Sun and Moon don't somewhat compare, we might not be able to ignore visual effects that, by comparison, look like they came out of the 1980s. No new Eevee-lution? Okay, this may not break the game, or make it unplayable, but come on, you have to admit, one of the best parts of each new generation is seeing what new Eevee mutant Game Freak decides to grow at its lab. Never mind evolutions that just aren't as cool as the others, what if there isn't a new one at all? Not enough new Pokemon. One of the things that has always kept the game fresh and interesting is the introduction of new Pokemon. And while most generations have added about 100 to 150 Pokemon to each title, the last game that showcased new Pokemon, Pokemon X and Y, only saw the arrival of 69 new creatures with its release. If this becomes a trend, it could plunge this game into a hole that not even all the trainer customization in the world could free it from. And finally, more than anything that could potentially ruin this game, is a bad story. To be fair, Pokemon has never really been a game you turn to for the best storytelling. Its premise is simple and repetitive, and most of the in-game characters' motivations and actions are predictable and simple to understand. With that being said, there is incredible opportunity to advance the storytelling in this game like never before seen. But on the other side of that coin, there's not much wiggle room at the other end. If the in-game story gets any worse, even if it's just a little worse, it just gets bad. X and Y were games, while revolutionary to the franchise in many ways, lacked severely in the storytelling department. The game's plot did not continue any of the intrigue from the games that came before it, instead opting for the easy option of duplicating the old plots but just changing the names and logos of the heroes and villains. If Sun and Moon go down this same road and merely copy and paste the infrastructure from the games that preceded it without any real improvement or originality, it could become an omen of death to a franchise we have all spent a lifetime cultivating a deep connection with. But if I'm being perfectly honest, none of these things scare me all that much about the new games. I'm sure if I'm mentioning them here, all of these things were discussed in some way or another many months ago, deep inside the big brain that is the Nintendo Corporation. Either way, I just wanted to have a little conversation with you guys about the new games. And let's not stop here. What are your thoughts on the new games coming out? Is there anything you think would ruin Sun and Moon for you? Or better yet, what are you excited for? I really want to know what you think, so make sure to leave a comment down below to share with the rest of us. Anyways, it's getting kind of late here and I've really got to get going, so as always, this is KangasCloud, going back to the Shroud.